Alright, the purpose of this video is to provide a walkthrough of the Galactic Morphology lab. Let's begin by going to the module. Alright, so if I scroll down to the module, you'll see here is Galactic Morphology PDF template file and the Galactic Morphology XLSX file. That's the Excel file, that's the data file. We also have questions for Galactic Morphology, and this is where you will upload your completed Excel file and also answer the questions that are at the end of the template here. So let's go download the template file and the data file. I click on that. The download button for the template is up here in the upper right hand corner. Click on that. If anything like this pops up at the very bottom, it says or continue with download only. That's all I care about. So this is downloaded to my downloads directory. Now that I have that downloaded, I'll go back to the module, and now I want to get the Galactic Morphology data file. So I'll click on that and then click on the download link at the top. And that downloads to my downloads directory. Now that I have those two files downloaded, let's go look at the template file. Here in the Galactic Morphology template file, it tells us what the purpose of this lab is. It's to classify several program galaxies according to the Hubble sequence that is used for galaxy classification, also called the Hubble tuning fork. Here are the things we're going to need. We're going to need Stellarium, we're going to need the template file, and that's the file we've got open right now. The data file, the questions, and also Excel. In the background information, here's a little bit about Edwin Hubble, and then the Hubble tuning fork is introduced, and this is really the crux of the whole lab right here. This is a way to classify galaxies according to their shape, which is what morphology is. We are classifying things according to their form or shape. We have elliptical galaxies and spiral galaxies. If anything does not fall into the classification of a spiral or elliptical galaxy, it is considered an irregular galaxy. Irregular galaxies are not shown on this Hubble tuning fork diagram. So the tuning fork shows ellipticals in a straight line over here on the left hand side. Spirals go up to the right, and then barred spirals go down to the right. E stands for elliptical, the S stands for spiral. The number beside the E indicates how elliptically shaped the galaxy is. So an E0 is mostly a spherical elliptical galaxy. You can remember that because a spherical shape means that it is O. So E0 is spherical. And then once it becomes a little more elongated, it's no longer a 0. Here's an E3, here's an E5, here's an E7. Now, the ellipticals only go from E0 to E7, and not all of them are shown here. There is E1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, but E7 is about the maximum that you'll have for an elliptical galaxy. Beyond that, we have S0. Now, S indicates that it's a spiral, but the 0 indicates that there's no obvious arms on the spiral galaxy. Now, as we go up, you can see there's an S little a, S little b, and S little c. The ABC indicates how tightly wound the arms are. So, S little a indicates that the arms are fairly tightly wound. You can make out spiral arms, but they're very tight. S little b indicates that the arms are a little looser, and S little c indicates that the arms are very loose. So you can see here are three images. In fact, every one of these has an image of that type of galaxy. Now, a lot of this is a judgment call. There is no clear rule as to what separates an SA from an SB, but after you look at a few galaxies, I think it becomes apparent which is which. Now, across the bottom here, we have S and then big B, little a, S big B, little b, S big B, little c. Again, the A, B, and C indicates how tightly wound the arms are, but here the S big B indicates that the nucleus is a barred spiral. So you can see each of these drawings, each of these diagrams has a barred spiral, and the images that are below that also show that. Okay, now like I said, if a galaxy does not fall into any of these categories, then it is usually considered an irregular galaxy. Okay, one thing about this Hubble tuning fork is for you to realize this is not an evolutionary scheme. Ellipticals do not evolve into spiral galaxies or vice versa. This diagram is just a scheme to help you understand the shapes of the galaxies, and it's put in the shape of a tuning fork just for convenience. There is nothing that represents an evolutionary track for galaxies here. So after ellipticals and spirals are introduced, then we move on. Here's an important note at the end. You should pay attention to this note. The valid classes that you should enter are IRR, that stands for irregular, SA, SB, SC, and then S big BA, S big B, and S big BC, S0, and then E0, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, and E6 and E7. Only these designations for the classification of each galaxy is going to be allowed. Anything else besides one of those classifications is counted incorrectly. So be sure that you use exactly those classifications there. All right, as we scroll down, then here comes the procedure. The first step is to familiarize yourself with the data table. Then start Stellarium, look up the galaxies that are in the data table, and classify them. Here is an example of an irregular galaxy. This is the Large Magellanic Cloud, also called the LMC. And you can see it's of no obvious spiral or elliptical shape. It's a big mess, and that is the nature of an irregular galaxy. Again, the note telling you what the valid types are that you can use. Use only these designations for the estimated Hubble type for each of the program galaxies that you're going to see in a minute in the data table. And then, of course, you need to upload. Once you fill out the data table, you'll need to upload it into the question section and also answer these questions. Now, if you've read the chapter about galaxies, you understand that there's more than just the morphology, more than just the shape of the galaxy that determines what kind of galaxy it is. For example, you probably know that spirals have both young and old stars in them. The old stars cluster more towards the nucleus, whereas the young stars are in the spiral arms, whereas ellipticals are mostly entirely old stars. So once you've got all of that stuff figured out, then that will help you answer these questions here. All right, let's go look at the data table now. All right, here's the data table. First thing I need to do is enable editing here. And now this is the entire table. I can see that the column on the left-hand side is galaxy name. Some of them have M designations and some of them have NGC designation. The bottom one down here says SMC, that stands for Small Magellanic Cloud. The top one up here says LMC, and that's the Large Magellanic Cloud. Now, I told you already, the Large Magellanic Cloud is an irregularly shaped galaxy. So, underneath these columns, you'll see we have spirals over here in the blue. We have ellipticals here in kind of the orange. And then we have irregulars over here in the green. You notice there's an X in the irregular column for LMC. And then out here to the right, on the far right-hand side, is the estimated Hubble type, which is IRR, irregular. Now what you want to do is you want to look up every single one of these galaxies in the list here, and you want to decide whether, first of all, is it a spiral, is it an elliptical, or is it an irregular? If it's an irregular, there are no subcategories for irregular. You just put an X in the irregular column. But for spirals, for example, we have spirals with no bar and spirals that are barred. And then underneath that, we have no arms, tight arms, mid arms, or loose arms. And then under the barred, the same four categories here. Now, no arms, whether it's under the barred or the no barred, no arms indicates that it is an S0. So the tight arms would be an SA, for no bar would just be SA, and then SB, and then SC. If it is a barred, the S big B A is tight arms, S big B B is mid arms, and S big B C is loose arms. And then under the ellipticals, you can see towards the left side here it says spherical. That would be an E0, an elliptical 0. And then on the right hand side it says highly elliptical, so it's stretched out, and that would be an E7. So it is your job then to look up each one of these galaxies using Stellarium and figure out which one of these columns you should place an X in. And you should only have one X per galaxy. So for M31, which we'll do here in just a second, we need to place an X in one of these columns. After we've placed the X, then we determine the estimated Hubble type, and that is one of those classifications that we covered in the template. So let's start with M31. Let's start Stellarium and get started. Here we go. First thing I want to do is turn off the atmosphere, turn off the ground, and turn off the cardinal points. And now I want to find M31, so I'm going to hit F3 to search for object, and I'm just going to type in M31. Then I hit enter, and it goes to M31. M31 is the Andromeda galaxy, and you can see that it is centered here, and we've got these oscillating, this oscillating square, or these oscillating corners around it. When I zoom in, I'm zooming in with my mouse wheel, but you can also use control up arrows or control down arrows. And now that I look at it, well, this is an obvious spiral. And when I look to see, does it have a bar in the middle? No, it does not have a bar. It looks spherical in the central region. So this would be an S, not an S big B galaxy. But how tightly wound are their arms? Now the arms are apparent. I can see the arms. So that rules out S0. If you can't see arms, then it would be an S0. But because I can see arms, now I have to judge, are they tightly wound or loosely wound? And these look pretty tight here. So I'm going to call this an S little a. Now let's go look here. It's definitely a spiral. There is no bar, and it is tightly wound. So I'm going to put an X in that column right there. And then I'm going to have to come all the way to the right, and I'm going to call that an S little a. So that's one of the allowed types, S little a. So I'm done with M31. Now you need to do the same thing for every other galaxy here. You'll put an X in one of these columns, and then over to the right hand side you'll determine what is the Hubble type. And this is an estimate. I know sometimes it's just a judgment call. There is no obvious right answer on some of these, so what I look for is a range of answers. For example, if it's a spiral galaxy and you put elliptical, well, that's definitely wrong. If you put an X in more than one of these columns, that's also wrong. It's one or the other. It is not multiple X's for one galaxy. Okay, so once you have that filled in, then you go answer the questions that are here in the template, and you go to the quiz to do that. Like I've said before, it's helpful to look at what the answers are because these are multiple choice questions, and it'll give you a better idea what kind of answer you're looking for. Remember, you can submit labs multiple times, you can take the quiz multiple times, but each time you do, be sure you upload the file and answer all of the questions because only your last attempt is kept. Okay, I believe that's it for this lab. So hopefully you learned something, and hopefully you have a great week.